Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, ceasefire at what price? Israel considers a deal with Hamas while the IDF plans to capture Gaza City. And inside Gaza, an exclusive look at the day-to-day operations of food distribution. Plus, coming home, hundreds of American and Canadian Jews relocate to Israel to begin their new lives. And when hope turns into nightmare, the little publicized plight of religious minorities in the Middle East. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on Thursday approved IDF plans to push into Gaza City. And this week, hundreds of Jews from the U.S. and Canada arrived in Israel to start new lives despite the war. And CBN News also got a first-hand look at one organization on the front lines feeding the people of Gaza. Here's the latest on these and other stories.
As Israel's offensive in the Gaza Strip ramps up, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is still considering the ceasefire deal Hamas has agreed to. Since the last ceasefire ended in March, the Israel Defense Forces say they've eliminated over 2,100 Hamas operatives, including senior commanders, and now control 75% of the Strip. During a visit to the IDF's Gaza division, Netanyahu praised the troops.
I was impressed by the fighting spirit and determination to complete the defeat of Hamas and the release of all of our hostages.
In Jerusalem, IDF leaders presented plans to capture Gaza City, and Netanyahu ordered the timeline moved up to take the city even faster. In Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, Israel's finance minister announced a project to build 3,400 housing units in a disputed area. Smotrich called a two-state solution with the Palestinians a two-state delusion.
The time has come to fully apply Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, to forever remove from the table the idea of dividing the land and to make sure that by September, Europe's hypocrite leaders will simply have nothing to recognize.
Wednesday also marked the first Aliyah flight since October 7th, bringing 225 Jewish Americans and Canadians to make Israel their home.
We're fulfilling the dream of dreams. We're trying to come and rebuild the land and be a part of the Jewish people who have been going through a lot the last couple of years.
Aliyah in Hebrew means to go up or to ascend. So at Bible times, they went up to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast. And for these people arriving today, it's just as important. They're here to fulfill a lifelong dream, begin again, even to help out in a time of war.
This is great. Exciting. I'm excited. Yeah, it's amazing.
Overwhelming, but it's really, really cool to see everyone out here like this. Yeah.
These two are moving from St. Louis and Los Angeles and will be enlisted in a program that helps IDF soldiers.
It feels right, home is home, and I think it feels the most right for me personally to come give back and be here. That's where I feel closest to my family and to myself.
I'm the same way. I just feel like it's the right thing for me right now, and I feel very connected to Israel, and it's the place I want to be.
In Tel Aviv, Paul Petite, CBN News. Netanyahu met with the IDF Chief of Staff and Defense Minister.
We are in the decision-making phase. I arrived in the Gaza division today to approve the plans that the IDF presented to me and the Minister of Defense for taking over Gaza City and defeating Hamas. At the same time, I have instructed to begin immediate negotiations for the release of all of our hostages and an end to the war on terms acceptable to Israel. These two things, defeating Hamas and releasing all of our hostages, go hand in hand.
In response to charges of genocide against the people of Gaza, Israel argues that it makes efforts to protect civilians in its war against Hamas. On the eve of the military operation, the IDF released this audio of an Israeli officer calling medical officials inside Gaza City to arrange safe passage for the sick and wounded to southern Gaza. He says this requires you to prepare a plan to transfer the medical equipment from north to south so that you will be able to provide treatment for all the patients in the southern strip and prepare the hospitals to receive the patients coming from the north. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee on X slammed a new report that's declaring a famine in Gaza. You know who is starving? The hostages kidnapped and tortured by uncivilized Hamas savages. Maybe the overfed terrorists could share some of their warehouse full they stole with hungry people, especially the hostages. CBN News got a first-hand look at one organization providing food directly to the people of Gaza. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has distributed about 130 million meals in just about 3 months under some of the most challenging conditions to distribute humanitarian aid.
We'll hit probably 131, 132 today, and our sites are safe, and we're looking to scale so we can feed more people.
GHF spokesman Chapin Fay tells CBN News the foundation provides an alternative to other aid distribution that's been stolen by Hamas.
You see Hamas riding around with armed men, stealing the aid and taking it. We believe Hamas made $1 billion during this war alone, and that's why we're here. We are doing it in a way, we are feeding people in a way that Hamas or anyone else cannot steal it. We're proud of our record of over 130 million meals delivered.
This woman told us what the aid means to her.
I am safe. I am good. I can eat today. That's me. Thank you for everyone working this project. Thank you for all of one.
GHF says reports of hundreds of people being killed at their distribution sites are untrue.
But as you can see, this is yet another successful distribution. Over the last month, they have been running much more smoothly, much more securely and efficiently and safely. And we plan to get better and better every day and feed more and more people every day.
We're here in our studio with Paul Petite, a visiting CBN correspondent. Paul, you were down there in David Ben Gurion Airport. You saw over 250 Olim, these immigrants coming back to Israel. What were your thoughts and impressions?
At first, I didn't know Aliyah from Ali accent, free, right? As you said, playing tag as a kid. It was, and as a reporter, you're supposed to be, observing and doing your story. It was an emotional experience. I mean, just seeing the families there, seeing the music play, and seeing the feeling as they came down the ramp, from the plane. It was an impactful moment. And I don't know Aliyah from anything. And when you understand that, it's coming from biblical terms where it talks about the ascent as they came for the feasts and going up. And here they were coming to their homeland. And many of these, we're talking from age 6 all the way up to 72 infants as well. A whole new beginning. And, it's mind-boggling that a family would do that. It's not because of a new job. It's not because of immigration. They want a better life. It's returning home for that purpose. So highly impactful.
Yeah, and we talked before you went down there. This is sort of prophecy coming to life. It's exactly what the prophet
I've seen
said.
It before my eyes.
Yeah. Well, what was that like?
It was, like I said, it was impactful knowing that this is actually happening in real time. You're watching all unfold in front of you and talking to these people who are just, again, uplifting. I talked to a pediatrician, with his holding his little child. They said, we're beginning again. We're here for a purpose. We're here to help rebuild. We're here to be, even in the worst of times with war going on. And speaking of which, you were down in the Gaza Strip, and for the first time in a while, seeing the actual food distribution. What was that like? What were you seeing?
Well, that was great. That was actually, seeing firsthand. We've reported on this for the last 3 months or so. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation delivering aid directly to Gazans, as opposed to Hamas, where the humanitarian aid comes in, often gets stolen, looted, and then resold by Hamas to sort of fund its war machine. But to see these people get food handed to them, especially the women that come down there, it was really emotional as well. I mean, to see these people, you get to see them face to face. Unfortunately, we can't show their faces because Hamas threatens the people that come there to get aid directly, which is just gives you an indication of what a threat this is to Hamas, because it bypasses their monopoly on the humanitarian aid and yet puts people in harm's way if they're identified that they're coming there. So it was really great. To be able to be a firsthand witness to that, just like you were at Ben Gurion Airport. And then final question, Paul, with about a minute left. It's all about the battle for truth. We've been talking about that since you've been here. A lot of it is, what is the information people getting out there in the world, or what's happening here in Israel?
Yeah, usually in our business, there's a lot of gray area. This is almost black and white to me, having come here and seeing what's actually happening and then what's being sent out across the globe. And really it's become very clear that there's an agenda, an anti-Israel agenda. And I love what we're doing because we're here to expose what's going on, talk to the people to say, hey, here's what's really happening. The food distribution, Exhibit A, right?
Yeah.
All we've heard is that, starving Gazans, but then when you understand that the media there is basically controlled by Hamas or their Gaza media, and they're controlling everything, every little bit. And I spoke to a journalism, 50 years experience writing for the Jerusalem Post. You really get a sense of, okay, there's an agenda here, and it's certainly not pro-Israel.
That's certainly true. Paul Petite, great to be with you. So glad you're here.
Yeah, it's quite an honor.
The war in Gaza has revealed the extent of the tunnel network Hamas constructed with stolen resources, hundreds of miles long. We spoke with an IDF soldier whose elite unit maps and destroys these tunnels. Here's our conversation. Sergeant Major Chaim Mailsman, great to be with you.
What a pleasure. Thank you, Chris. Love your work.
Yeah, thanks. Love what you do, too. You just came out of Gaza. Tell us what it's like right now.
Yeah, hours ago, it is intensely hot. The heat wave is intense. You've got your ceramic vest on, your helmet. You're just sweating buckets.
Yeah.
But of course, the work is intense and ongoing. Don't we all wish that it would just be over quicker with victory?
Yeah.
Not conceding. I know there's this term that is going around the internet, which is Israel, give all your lunch money to the school bully, or else you're obstructing peace. No, that's not how you deal with a bully. You got to actually say, no, you're not allowed to bully. And that's the Hamas is the bully, and we're dealing with that. But we're going very slow and incremental steps, even with the Gideon's chariots, which is still an ongoing operation. But we're still gearing up for what I call it, the last hurrah, the encircling Gaza City, and then of course Mawasi, and if they haven't, been dismantled and surrendered, leave. Dismantle or else. So or else will continue to Deir al-Balach and Mawasi, etc. And so
Mawasi's right there on the coast, right? The Gaza, in the central Gaza.
After Gaza City is encircled, which we call it Sir Lachatz, which is a full encirclement, and then begin to close in. And it's a big city, and we'd have to move over 1 million people out. Part of this since October 7th, well, it's October 8th, I've been in, and consecutive deployment. Now it's going on 700 days straight. And so I've been able to do a very sensitive thing, which is the tunnel, finding it, which is extremely hard.
So this is what your unit does?
This is what Yahalom, that's
so what do you do?
Which is special, it's combat engineer, special unit for unique missions. So the combat engineer unit for special missions. It's almost like SWAT, but it's specifically for, there's underwater explosives, there's underground explosives, there's all kinds of different things that this unit does. And our job is to find, which is really, really hard with all kinds of secret technology, which we can't disclose, and map what's going on with these tunnels, up, down, and it's the metro, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. How many exactly? Some say 400 or 500 kilometers of tunnels in a small area. Okay, it's how many is it from the top to bottom of Israel if you put it one tunnel? So you have all that in this little area, and so it's intense. And you have some that go this way. They're not all connected. I was part of Operation Atlantis, commanding and controlling the Operation Atlantis, which was the flooding of the tunnels. That didn't work out so good. Put a lot of money and time and effort into those pumps and into that whole operation. But they're not all interconnected. So it doesn't work that you hit one opening and you've hit them all. Some were flooded, had minimal success. I know Egypt was doing that, flooding the Hamas tunnels back in the day. But we continue the work slowly but surely to find these hostages, living or
deceased.
Already deceased.
So you've been in there almost 700 days. Final question. What's your message to people outside of Israel?
Well, I do these videos on the Aliyah Return Center, Facebook, every single day. I'll do an encouragement whenever I can, and I'll do an encouragement, and I'll end with a verse. I'll summarize the day, what happened in the day, and then I'll put out a verse of encouragement, just about victory for Israel. And that I think people need to go and read the definition of the word victory. Okay, victory isn't compromise to the school bully, isn't capitulation to terror. No, and I know that the world doesn't understand that, and that's something that we hopefully will be able to explain why victory is so important. But victory means a defeat of the enemy. They're dismantled. They are disarmed. Okay, and so we need to believe that God's plan for Israel is victory, even in Gaza. I know that Joshua, in the time of the Bible, he didn't defeat the giants in Gaza, defeated them everywhere else, but not in Gaza. There's a stronghold that's been there, even spiritually. And I believe now God has afforded a time through this trauma, through this time of great despair, an opportunity to complete that mandate, which is in the Bible. You look at Zephaniah chapter 2, you look at Zechariah, and you see that there is, for the clans of Judah, it shall be for the clans of Judah. And I know there's a big divide in Israel. Yeah. Should we settle there? Should we not settle there? I just say right now we need to deal with the immediate threat and restore security. This is the government's mandate, and I encourage people, pray for that. Read the definition of victory, then pray that over Israel. That would be my encouragement. And read that in the Word of God.
Yeah. Hi, Mel. It's been great to be with you, and thanks for what you do.
Hey, it's a blessing.
Worldwide, Christians are facing increasing persecution because of their faith in Jesus Christ. However, they're not alone. Extinction also threatens Middle Eastern Jews, Yazidis, and others. Gary Lane has the story.
December 2010, Tunisians ignited a spark leading to the so-called Arab Spring, fueling hope that freedom and democracy would spread rapidly throughout the Middle East. Those hopes, however, became dashed as the dream turned into a nightmare. In Egypt, Muslim Brotherhood rule led to burned churches and bloodshed. The rise of the Islamic State followed with even greater atrocities, spreading to Iraq and Syria. Minority faiths, now considered infidels, were forced to convert to Islam, pay a jizya tax, or face death. Many Christians, Jews, Yazidis, and moderate Muslims chose to flee. Hillary Miller of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom argues that now, outside of Israel, Jews have all but disappeared from the Middle East.
At its height in the 1940s, the Jewish community of Egypt numbered at 80,000. 80,000. Today, there are fewer than 10 Jews residing between Alexandria and Cairo.
75 years ago, a community of 50,000 Jews thrived and prospered in Syria. Today, no Jews remain. Miller reports that's also happened in Yemen, home to the Houthi militia.
Today, from an ancient community nearly 2,000 years old, which at its peak numbered at 55,000 Jews, one Jew remains in Yemen. His name is Libby Marhabi, and he has languished in Houthi prison since 2016. His crime? Attempting to carry a Torah scroll from Yemen to Israel.
Historically, Christians in Syria and Iraq numbered between 3 to 4 million. Today, however, their population has dwindled to around 300,000 in each country. Carmela Borishan, the director of the Sussex Evangelistic Association, believes that although ISIS is no longer a significant threat in northern Iraq, its outdated 7th century mentality still lingers. CBN News spoke with her at this summer's Coptic Solidarity Conference.
I was going to ask you if you consider it genocide. What is happening?
It is very subtle ethnic cleansing that is covered really well. A lot of Western world don't see it because they are protecting the patriarchs.
Iraq's Yazidi minority faith group is facing a critical decline. The United Nations reports that ISIS killed nearly 5,000 Yazidis and kidnapped at least 7,000 women and girls. 10 years later, 3,000 Yazidi females remain in captivity. Jamila Nazo, president of the Canadian Yazidi Association, faults the international community for not doing enough to rescue them.
I sit with these mothers and they show me photos of their kids and they say they're in this house, in this community, on this street, in this village in Iraq. And there's nothing we can do to get them because there's no political will on any fronts.
In June, tragedy struck the Christian community in Syria when armed jihadists opened fire and detonated a suicide vest at St. Elias Church. Located on the outskirts of Damascus, the attack occurred as Christians gathered for worship. A total of 24 people were killed, leaving the Christian community in mourning and shock. This incident raises an important question following last year's fall of the Assad regime and the appointment of Ahmed el-Shara as president. Was this a rare occurrence? Or is the threat of annihilation for Syria's Christian minority growing? Will Ahmed el-Shara's HTS government make a difference?
El-Shara himself may turn out to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, but he said a lot of the right things to date. But some of the things that are happening really do not inspire confidence.
After the massacre of minority Alawites and others last March, and in light of the deaths of over 1,000 minority Druze in tribal violence in southern Syria last month, el-Shara turned to Turkish President Erdogan for military assistance. He requested military equipment and training to help protect religious minorities. Ryan Morrow from the Capital Research Center is skeptical of Western leaders who speak as if el-Shara won an election. That's because if he were to hold an election today, Morrow says it's likely he would lose, because both religious minorities and Muslim extremists dislike him.
So who's left? Oh, the Muslim Brotherhood? Maybe he's moving in that direction because it's been so successful. No, they're not going to accept him either, because he's talking about normalizing ties with Israel. And even if it's a trick, he's gone way too far. He's taken a step beyond what they would even say is permissible by deception.
The question remains of who will protect the Middle East religious minorities from annihilation. Many Syrian Christians turn to God rather than governments to shield them from jihadist attacks. Additionally, a Syrian International Council representative, Asherena Abraham, suggests that Western leaders must urgently intervene before it's too late.
We cannot have meaningful conversations about protecting Christians if we are not listening to genuine Christian voices. If we remain silent now, this pattern of murder and injustice will continue until the very last Assyrian in Syria is dead or gone, and every road of our homeland is once more fractured and regimes continue to pave over our freshly dead, bloody bodies. A community who still speaks the language of Jesus and whose evangelistic force spread Christianity from India to China will be a footnote in history.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Immigrating to a new country is challenging enough, but imagine doing it during the nightmare of war and increasing anti-Semitism. The family in our next story fled Ukraine for a better life in Israel and found themselves beset with medical challenges. Nicole Yansezian has the story.
Natalia, her husband Yuri, and their 2 daughters lived in Ukraine when the war broke out in the winter of 2022.
We had to flee from our home in Ukraine because of the war that started. It was horrifying. We understood that we needed to take our children to safety.
The stress caused by war took a serious toll on their health.
My husband was sick. It was very hard. He has type 2 diabetes. He had already had a microinfarction.
It was clear the family needed to leave Ukraine. Because of their Jewish heritage, they decided to relocate to Israel.
My 2 daughters, they are very smart girls. I wanted to give them an opportunity for a better life, to have a home and security, an opportunity to connect with their Jewish roots.
They finally found a new home in Israel, and Yuri began to receive the medical care he needed. But after a routine checkup, doctors diagnosed Natalia with cancer.
I wasn't feeling well either and ended up getting a serious diagnosis as well. It was so hard. I had to ask for help, and that's when I reached out to CBN.
CBN Israel was able to step in and provide this family with much needed support. Thanks to you, CBN Israel helped the new immigrants with groceries and bought furniture for the apartment and computers the girls can use for their schoolwork. Natalia and Yuri were able to establish themselves in Israel while focusing on their recovery, giving their daughters a chance to focus on adapting to their new schools.
There are good people in the world. I feel like I'm not alone, and that you're next to me. It's so hard now, but I'm not alone. Thank you.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Please keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. And we leave you with encouragement from Psalm 34, verses 15 through 18. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to blot out their name from the earth. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. encouraging words for these days. I'm Chris Mitchell. For all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.